Hugh, brother, I told you about the situation at home before. I originally wanted Brother Miaoxin to observe, but you didn't, he replied, because you were too busy. Later, I found a few people with magic to see it, and they all said that all my unhappiness, false illness and marriage obstacles were because of a man. Caused by the entanglement of non-human beings and marriage. If one person observes and says so, I still don't believe it. If several people say so, it must be, but they can only observe and can't solve it. One of them will solve it, but I'm a little scared when I heard it. She needs to do things and marry Ayin. I also want to go in person. I need to be a stand-in for my birthday with Ayin marriage. They said that if I don't solve it, I want he live to be 48 years old. That man is very persistently entangled with me. In fact, they didn't say it. Over the years, I can also feel that I have also guessed something, but I dare not listen to her words with Ayin marriage. Is there any solution, brother? I read my brother's article. I don't know why there are many things that I haven't heard of. I can't understand what kind of printed pictures and what the origin. I'm really anxious, and there is no way to study it one by one. After all, I've never learned it. I hope you can teach me a way or give me some advice on whether it can be matched with Ayin marriage. Qinglianchi, regarding the practice of using the 8 characters of birth as a stand-in for Ayin marriage. I talked to some seniors who had practiced Taoism and knew some of the principles behind it. Last time, there was a senior sister who gave a relative when she was a child, and her relatives loved her very much. After his death, his family asked someone to be a stand-in for this senior sister. The role was to let the other one go to the underworld to accompany his loved ones, replacing the real self, so as to relieve the pain of the entanglement of the deceased. However, when Brother Miaoxin observed her marriage barrier, she saw the picture of a scarecrow as a stand-in when she was a child, which led to her soul being incomplete. And the deceased relative has been following her. Of course, there is no word for soul in Buddhism. It should originate from traditional Chinese medicine, mathematic or folk sayings. But it may be said that it is a part of divine consciousness or essence. This situation exists in reality. The psychics in my hometown often mention that the soul is incomplete, which will make people's mental state, attention, fortune and other aspects decline, and need to be found by practice. Although I have not found a reasonable explanation similar to the incompleteness of the soul from the Buddhist classics at present. It may be that Buddhism focuses on the world's law, or there are many Buddhism that have not been spread to the world. There was a man in my hometown. After his death, he possessed a living person and said that he often wore a pair of slippers with his son during his lifetime. After his death, his family burned these slippers together with his clothes for him. His son's soul also came to the underworld. He needed to ask the mage to pull his son's soul back. This pair of slippers, worn by his son, contains his son's information and biological field. Now it is burned to his father, and his information and soul have also followed. Similar to the double method, take 8 characters, nails, hair, etc. and replace a person with a person's information. The precedents of King Kong in the way to achieve the Dharma, the walker mixed 1,000 ghee lamps with his own blood to support the King Kong boy. And then recited the mantra until there was a voice in the air saying, "Your Dharma has been fulfilled." After that, he gained great power, super magic experience, arbitrary spiritual experience, broken mountains and cut off the flow, and the demon was full of wishes, and it was achieved at will. To support with your own blood, it can also be said to be similar to offering to the Lord with yourself, offering your information and life to the Lord. Getting the Lord's acceptance and knowledge. In the Buddhist induction story, it is sometimes heard that although a person is still alive, the divine consciousness is tortured in hell and died soon. The knowledge in this field is very complex, and the world knows not much about it. Can you do this to the question of the lady above? I clearly suggest not to do this. The method that should be adopted is, print a picture of a cartoon beauty, on which you can see their houses and cars. Then use yellow paper to stand the card position, recite the sutra back, and then burn it to the disturbing sentient being. Remember that this picture of a beautiful woman must be cartoon, not a real person. In fact, this is also a kind of marriage with the underworld. Beautiful women are given to the male undead, and the house is for 2 people to live together and live a good life. Why don't you use your own photo avatar and write your name and birthday? Because doing so is equivalent to giving part of your information to the other party, the causal entanglement will further deepen. You and the underworld will have a close connection, and cause and effect will become more complex. The Vajrasanas Dharma is dedicated to the Lord with your information, establishing a deep relationship, and blessed by the Lord. And the 8-character marriage binds your information and ghosts, which is prone to side effects, and the consequences can be imagined. And there is an obvious difference between you printing cartoon beauties, creating a female image in the French world, and marrying with part of your information. When recultivating the method, you need to pay attention to the following details. Print 3 to 7 pictures of beautiful women, with RVs and other physical objects. Standing position. Entangled XX the spiritual position of the male undead. Then put it some offerings, burning incense to start practice, and reciting general sutras. If you practice this method, you may not have a Buddhist temple. At home, or other places are fine. As long as you can stand up the cards and pictures. Pray for Buddha and Bodhisattva, Guanyin Bodhisattva, Jizang Bodhisattva, and also invite local city gods and other land gods. Chant the scriptures back. Take it outside and burn it. This is a way to solve real problems quickly, but it should be noted that it is fundamental to practice, do homework well and do merit. Some people often burn fortune-making maps and dragon tickets to ask for wishes. This is okay, but you should also practice well at ordinary times. You can take burning as a major and don do your homework. Q. Hello, brother Qinglianchi, what should I do if I am very unhappy, depressed and have obsessive-compulsive disorder every day? Qinglianchi, psychologists have been studying depression and obsessive-compulsive disorder and have their own theoretical system. Just like a dream, Freud likes to associate all kinds of dreams with sex. He believes that sex is the eternal primitive instinct of human beings, which is as uncontrollable as a well blast. After learning Buddhism, I found that there was obviously something wrong with his view. Eating, sex and sleeping are just the habits of all sentient beings. And it is selfless, not eternal. Fusha regards it as a fixed instinct, and there is bound to be a need for release. Carl Jung, on the other hand, expanded Freud's theory and put forward the concept of collective subconsciousness. Not all dreams come from your experience. Depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, suicide as for the tendency and other issues, psychology generally believes that it is related to the original family. And the childhood experience can be said to determine the character and choices of a lifetime. A man cheats many times after marriage, and psychologists can find the reason from the childhood complex. After all, the naked eye of human beings is limited, and through the statistical analysis of clinical symptoms, a lot of key information is often missed. For example, the last time a mother came to me, her daughter tried to commit suicide with a blade many times, went to the hospital, and was diagnosed with depression. The truth behind it is that when her daughter went to the river, she was entangled by a diving water ghost. Her mother recited the mantra and burned the yellow paper at the same time. She found that her daughter was getting better quickly and did not want to commit suicide and did not think nonsense. Priest, whose sister suddenly went crazy in college. A good person is so crazy. Later, he asked many Buddhists to practice, and now he has finally returned to normal, but his spirit is very weak. As for depression and obsessive-compulsive disorder, some people wash their hands all day long, and some do one thing repeatedly, which is very painful. If you have heavenly eyes and eyes, what you see is the interference of implicit sentient beings. To put it bluntly, it is the influence of wrongful creditors. There was a senior who repaired the car. He often screwed the screws and couldn't stop. It was painful. In the past, under the observation of the wonderful-hearted senior brother, it was also a dead man who was playing tricks. If you can go back to the undead by chanting sutras, doing merit and virtue, and overdoing the dead, these symptoms will be cured. I always thought so before, but gradually I found that there were many origins in the Dharma world. For example, the same disease, traditional Chinese medicine, Western medicine, witch doctor, each has different explanations and treatment methods, and can solve them. Therefore, for depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder and other problems, the first priority is implicit in human interference. But I found that there is a second reason. Those hidden sentient beings can be regarded as a kind of negative energy and dark energy. By reciting sutras, they transform negative energy with the positive energy and merits of the sutras, such as positive and negative neutralization. For the problem of the heart, it involves subtle levels and realms. When I was in junior high school, I had a forced thought for a while. When I was holding a few-year-old baby, I suddenly had a terrible idea of throwing the child downstairs. I woke up in the middle of the night and had the idea of jumping downstairs. Although there is nothing I can think of myself, this idea appears naturally. Fortunately, at that time, I recited the Heart Sutra and Guanyin Holy Name, and gradually, these thoughts disappeared. Later, I came into contact with psychology, such as Morita therapy in Japan. I ignored those forced thoughts, but accepted and observed it objectively. The more I resisted, the more it appeared, and the more I accepted it disappeared. This therapy is very similar to the view of Zen Buddhism, and it is also very similar to perfect psychology. When I read the Vajradhara Sutra, I also felt that human pain, depression, compulsion and other thoughts were actually just a kind of coarse delusion and obsession. People's thoughts can be divided into careless, careful, subtle, extremely careful. The 5 precepts cure coarse evil karma and troubles, and more deeply, the precepts of the heart. The higher the amount of evidence of the bodhisattva, the finer the troubles to be broken. Very depressed person's delusions are very heavy. Because he has no experience in meditation, he will not be aware of these delusions, so he is influenced by delusions. Some possessed people were controlled by the possessed spirit body to commit suicide, and even changed to another person. As a senior said last time, a friend of his saw an old man riding a bicycle in a birthday dress in the summer. Soon, the friend's personality changed, which was very terrible. When I saw these situations, I thought about the spiritual performance of the possession to control the living. And a person's thoughts are particularly strong, and he can also control others, especially in the state of samadhi meditation, and when holding spells to change the outside world, diseases, and even help others. The power of thoughts and spells are at work. This is a matter of the micro realm. The possession of non-humans is like the condensation of coarse delusions, and people are restrained by delusions. If this person you can constantly strengthen your mindfulness. When your mindfulness gradually becomes stronger, you can turn away all delusions, and any depression and obsession will disappear. No matter what kind of non-human possession he is, it can be dissolved. A woman has been depressed for 60 years, and all kinds of psychological counseling can solve it. She recited the Vajradhara Sutra and solved it. She lived a happy and sunny life every day. In addition to this kind of good thoughts replacing evil thoughts, there is also a practice, that is, the Qinglianchi method in meditation. There is a woman who suffers from deep depression. The Southern Zen master teaches her to observe her current movements and touch when she washes and cooks every day. Be aware of what you are doing, keep your mindfulness, and don't be taken away by delusions. Women do this every day and feel at ease every day. Next. As a result, after a period of time, she got rid of depression and lived a comfortable life. In life, troubles are inevitable. People at different levels have different troubles. The troubles of the poor are the problem of food and clothing, and the troubles of the rich may be the problem of boredom. The common people in the market have their own troubles, and the princes and generals also have their own troubles. It's normal to have a bad life. And if a person can often observe his own thoughts, regardless of good thoughts or bad thoughts, and maintain an objective and truthful observation, you will find that delusions cannot be obtained, just like watching a movie. As a bystander, you will not be taken away by delusions. Some people are often afraid of their slander of Buddha and Bodhisattva, disrespect to Buddha and Bodhisattva. If the more they resist, the more serious the delusion, what should they do? Try to observe these ideas. Don't be afraid of rejection, but observe with an equal and indiscriminate heart. You will find that these forced thoughts have vanished like running water and can't interfere with you. The more a person is addicted to his own world, the more troubles he may be. By watching prajna and constantly realizing, you can break through the fortress set up by delusions and live a comfortable life. The green mountains don't move, and the white clouds come and go. So, how to treat depression, possession, obsessive-compulsive disorder and other problems? First of all, you have mindfulness, confidence, and even fearlessness. Guanyin Bodhisattva also has a name, that is, the Fearless One. This is also one of the tips corresponding to Guanyin Bodhisattva, corresponding with a fearless heart. The chanting mantra is returned to the wronged relatives, creditors and clansmen of all generations. Observe your own delusions, accept, observe and let go. The problem of ancestral graves. The problem of ancestral graves is relatively complicated and involves the study of feng shui. Although Buddhists often say that the best feng shui is in the heart, the quality of the ancestral grave does have a great impact on people. Whether you believe it or not, the influence exists. My brother said that the ancestors whose ancestral graves were destroyed had a bad life. It seemed that they were not overborn. Those ancestors who had been reincarnated in the way of humanity, heaven and animals were destroyed. Logically speaking, there are no undead entangled with descendants. Why is there such a big difference in the blessing system of the same ancestor and future generations? For example, Obama is the president, but his brother works hard in Shenzhen. The ancient emperors also attached great importance to feng shui, but it was inevitable that the royal family fell and the dynasty changed. Qinglianchi, this method is mainly done for the side that is unfavorable to future generations, or if there is a problem with the ancestral grave. It has been explained in my article that Obama's brothers worked hard in Shenzhen. These differences in future generations have been explained in my article that Ishiwali can judge who is rich, who is fierce, who is long-lived, and who dies early according to the different directions of the ancestral graves and other factors. From the perspective of cause and effect, it is the individual work in the common industry. The emperor changed his dynasty, and the master of feng shui can also see how much qi is in the ancestral grave. Everything is based on cause and effect, and the 5 elements of yin and yang, feng shui ancestral graves, etc., are beyond cause and effect. A superb magician in the world can directly know how many descendants there are, life expectancy, wealth and reputation through a person's ancestral grave. It can be seen that these have their own systems and reasons. There is also a method of choosing a place to practice in seclusion, such as the Brahma's choice of land, in which there must be a strong earth god to help the earth. It can be seen that feng shui is also a help for practice. As for reincarnation and its impact on future generations, a senior who has learned the art of feng shui told me, "I just read my brother's article and someone left a message saying that the ancestors should not have been reincarnated to have such a big impact on the day after tomorrow." According to the view of feng shui and Taoism, people have 3 souls and 7 souls, and only a part of them are reincarnated. And what affects future generations is related to bone blood genes. Even if the ancestors have gone to, that thing will still exist. It will take hundreds or thousands of years to dissipate. However, the cost of changing the grave in the field is too high. The cost of the cemetery, the cost of the ancestors can't find the ashes, and the cost of finding a feng shui artist, ordinary people can't afford it at all. It feels too difficult to be popular. Qinglianchi, I saw the case written by Mr. Qinglianchi before. The problem of feng shui is the retribution problem involved in Buddhism, which has little to do with the reincarnation of the soul. Even if the soul is reincarnated, as long as the bones still exist in a certain period of time and space, it will affect the descendants because of blood information. There are cases in the famous doctor case, which can be explained in a similar way. A man broke his arm bone, and a doctor used willow wood to cut the bone for him. After the broken bone was removed, the doctor asked him to put it in a clean and dry place. The patient has recovered. After a long time, the patient felt that the old wound suddenly became itchy and painful, so he went to a doctor for treatment. After the doctor took the pulse, he asked, "Where's the broken bone removed before? I can't find it." "Finally, I found it under the bed, and it was moldy." The doctor removed the mold for the broken bone and roasted the broken bone on the fire, and the patient's illness was cured. Generally speaking, it takes about 100 years for some blood information in the bones of loved ones to dissolve, and bones, which are immortal for thousands of years, are also immortal. The metaphysical problem here is very esoteric. At present, it is difficult for science to explore and understand, but there is some subtle information induction, which is not the interference problem of the spiritual soul. It is possible that the deceased relatives have already been reincarnated, but the bones are in the world. As long as the bones are flooded or other problems, it will affect future generations. The cremated ashes generally do not have such problems. Qinglianchi, it can be seen from actual cases that the graves of ancestors, blood genes, etc., have an impact on future generations. Although it may be difficult for Buddhist students to accept the theory of the 3 souls, in the time and space cause of the world, ancestors and descendants must have a fateful correspondence. But the most core factor is morality and merit. For example, a Hong Kong person who has studied feng shui for many years often sets up feng shui bureaus for himself. But every time you find a good underworld house or young house, time and space will soon change, causing the auspicious land to become a bad land. For example, he once found a house with good feng shui. Not long after he moved in, an overpass began to be built near his house, and the feng shui changed again. He has tried many times, and it's all like this. Why? The blessing is not enough. This just fulfills a sentence, blessed land and blessed with people. The positive report turns according to the report. Blessing is fundamental, and feng shui can be regarded as a kind of help. Grandpa once married 2 grandmothers, the eldest grandmother and the second grandmother. How to write the origin diagram of the tombstone. Qinglianchi, Grandpa's name is written in the middle, Grandpa's left is written as the eldest grandmother, that is, our right, and Grandpa's right is written as the second grandmother. How to fill in the address of the tombstone origin map. Qinglianchi, write the place of origin, the location of the hometown, or the location of the cemetery. If there is no cemetery, write a place by yourself, preferably in your hometown. After all, this can make the ancestors return to their roots and settle into the ground. You can write a specific address, or a place or a mountain. But don't write the home address of the young Shangren, because you are in the Anzu grave, so don't put the ancestral grave at home. Another message, I used this method to send a big villa to my grandfather, grandmother and mother who passed away. A week later, she met a psychic. Without telling her in advance, she saw that her grandparents were preparing to move to a big house. Qinglianchi, by burning pictures in this way, corresponding entities will appear in the Dharma world. Of course, it would be best if it could go beyond the way to heaven or the pure land. It's just that it's really not easy. Q, if you have killed a lot of chickens and snakes, I don't know how many such pictures should be printed, or just one. Qinglianchi, there is no unified standard for these. Try to do it several times, such as 3 times or 7 times. If it hasn't been solved, continue to do it after a period of time. All of this is adjusted by the effect. How much you burn, the killed chickens and snakes will forgive you, only they know. Q, if my grandparents and grandparents are all dead, do I need to print 2 tombstone pictures, one for my grandparents and one is it grandparents? Qinglianchi, yes. Another message, my uncle was ill a few years ago and could not be diagnosed. Finally, he asked a famous Mr. Joey, who said that my ancestors were all wandering outside, and my family left a girl but not a man. The ancestors of the family came from Guangdong, and they couldn't find many graves of their ancestors at all. However, they chose a place to arid ancestral grave in the cemetery and wrote the names of their ancestors. Several ancestors only had names, but no ashes. The uncle was cured. In addition, a master in Chongnan Mountain this summer also warned us to go back to worship our ancestors, saying that we can't go back because we are busy with work, which is an excuse. Qinglianchi, there are many such cases in reality. The ancestors are like big trees and the descendants of virtue. The ancient Chinese attached great importance to filial piety in this regard. Hugh, brother, my eyelids have been jumping these days. Have a premonition that my child is disobedient at school. Please ask Brother Miaoxin to help me see what is going on. I will know why he is disobedient. I just want to ask Brother Miaoxin to see what his cause and effect is, so that I know how to do it and whether it is the same as what I perceive. Qinglianchi, it's normal for eyelids to jump and children to be disobedient. Let us see the cause and effect. I often receive a lot of messages asking Brother Miaoxin to observe, most of which do not have an in-depth understanding of cause and effect. Because many problems do not need to be observed. Buddhist scholars should put the power of change in their own hands, rather than relying on external observations. I saw some people whose families were full of disasters. They asked a lot of immortals and psychics to observe, but they couldn't solve it. Then I wanted to ask Brother Miaoxin to have a look. In fact, there are many things that don't go well. If you choose a suitable method and practice it for an hour or 2 a day, if you are sincere, there will be a response. Most modern people are impetuous and want to succeed quickly. If anyone leaves me a message, brother, I have recited the magic spell for 2 days. On the first day, my wish did not come true, and on the second day, I was not in good health. Why? Can I make a wish with this spell? I have studied Buddhism for more than 10 years, and I want to practice a spell. It is to release and recite the scriptures. Now I am confused. I'm almost 40 years and I'm unmarried, and I'm always dumped. Not an empty silk is a wish. I wanted to get in touch with the other party, but the other party hung up my phone the next day. In addition, I think it's easy to pronounce without an empty silk rope, and I pronounce it wrong in one breath. I just don't know whether to continue to recite or other wishes. Qinglianchi, after reciting the magic spell for 2 days, do you have to fulfill your wish, be healthy, and the other party is very good to you? I don't know why I have studied Buddhism for more than 10 years, but I have such a problem. Therefore, the first thing to learn Buddhism should be to read more scriptures, establish correct knowledge and correct views, and practice gradually. Otherwise, after studying for more than 10 or decades, you may not even be able to enter the door. It's a pity. It can only be planted with distant causes. Q. Can the secret spell mentioned by Emperor Shurgod be announced? I want to be clear about the certificate. Has anyone achieved it in reality? Qinglianchi, there was once a Japanese monk who specialized in the cultivation of the immovable Ming dynasty. He appeared and achieved immortality and flight achievements. In 811, he wandered to the temples and flew back to Akiha Mountain in Japan in 1294, 500 years later. After that, he didn't know the end. Generally speaking, according to the classics, those who achieve clearly will have a great life, and even those who do not achieve the empty silk method will have 1,000 lives. The long-term life of this disaster can be described as an astronomical figure. At least Shakyamuni Buddha is the 4th Buddha of today as sage, and Maitreya Buddha after 5.6 billion years is the 5th. Thousands of Buddhas were born in one disaster. This time is so long that an extraordinary man can do it. After the achievement, he can fly into the void and enter the pure lands, such as the pure land of Putuo Mountain. Every time Guanyin Bodhisattva says, there are often immeasurable immortals around listening to the Dharma. Or enter the palace of heavens, Azura Palace, Dragon Palace, etc. Some achievers in ancient India entered the Dragon Palace and have lived to this day. Some arhats also live in the Dragon Palace. According to the biography of the high priest of the Ming dynasty, Master Shi Jingzhen practiced the Huayan sect. During the Jiaxi period of the Song dynasty, he traveled to many famous temples in Zhejiang and saw the destruction of the Qiantang River dam, the overflowing of the river. And the people suffered. The mage wrote a verse and presented it to Zhao Duanming, the appeasement envoy, so he jumped into the sea and went to the Dragon Palace. The verbs are, the sea is boiling and the river is watering one after another, and the residents are worried and suffering. Throw yourself straight into the Dragon Palace and stop the waves from slapping the sky. 3 days later, the mage returned and said to the people, I said in the Dragon Palace, and the dragon god listened, and the Qiantang was no longer destroyed by the flood. After saying that, he jumped into the sea again. Zhao Weiming, an official, was moved by the virtue of the teacher. So he went to the imperial court and was awarded the title of Master of Protecting the Country and the establishment of Ancestral Hall. The ability of Master Jingzhen can enter the Dragon Palace, which means that he has achieved something by practicing the Zen view of the Huayan sect. Otherwise it is impossible to cross the barrier of time and space and go straight into the world of the Dragon Clan. If you practice Zen and succeed, you want to go to a different world, multi-dimensional time and space, it is as easy as the back of your hand. This is the way to practice samadhi, and there is also a kind of power to rely on the spell. For example, according to the history of Indian Buddhism, the dragon tree Bodhisattva entered the Dragon Palace at the beginning and was not harmed by dragon poison. He relied on the mantra of the peacock Ming King to know the place. As for the secret mantra mentioned by Emperor Shurgod, I will write it down at the right time. This method has the method of medicinal achievement, and it also has great merits. Like constant, those who recite therein appear to prove the position of Mingxian, that is, you can fly to various temples like the monk mentioned above, and return to the earth 500 or 1,000 years later. In addition to the proof of the immortals, its vast merits and virtues can gain the blessings of heaven, such as trees blooming all kinds of merit and wisdom, and getting all kinds of comfort and auspicious fruits. The supreme method of the Emperor of Heaven must have its non-communal divine power. The 4 heavenly kings, the King of Hell, the Star Suyao, the Big Dipper, and the gods of the mountains, rivers and forests are all under the jurisdiction of the Emperor of Heaven. Therefore, it is inevitable to practice it and get all kinds of comfort.